Hi, I'm Paul Rosa, and we're going to spend the next 60 minutes speaking with the lady you know as the outspoken Lwaxana Troi on Star Trek The Next Generation, if we can find her. Nice kitty. You might also remember her as Nurse Chapel on the classic Star Trek series. She's around here somewhere. I saw her here a minute ago. Majel Barrett Roddenberry, there you are.
Hi, Paul. Well, welcome to my office, or at least what's left of it after the earthquake.
Well, I'm just glad I found you because I have 1,000 questions.
Oh, all right. Mind if I finish my mail first?
No, not at all. So let's start with Lwaxana Troi. Your assistant, Ernie, explained to me that Jean came home one day and said, I have a character, you're going to love her, you don't have to act.
That's right. That's how he introduced me to the part. And he said it's sort of the Andy Mame of the galaxy, and come on in, you're going to have a ball. So that's how he brought it home, and that's how the Mother from Hell was born, really. If you remember her, especially the first episode, which was Haven, she really wasn't a delightful person. You know, she was something that every mother in the world has, or that she reminds everyone that I've talked to. They said of something about their mother. They don't know exactly what it is, can't put a finger on it, but there's this aspect, there's that aspect, and they're all bad. I mean, there's nothing good about them. She's arrogant. She has a flair, and she's wild. She is the Annie Mame. But underneath it, of course, there was the typical, the heart of gold and all that. But you didn't see it in the first 3 episodes, and then it was afterwards when it started to be brought in and so forth. And that was the fun about it, being able to change and having those places to go.
What do you want to do next, or in addition to, or?
I'd like to keep on doing more shows, of course, and I would love to do other acting. Oh, God, I would love to do other acting, in anything, really. And I have a desire to produce.
Jerry Taylor.
Yes.
Has brought a whole new feel to Star Trek, a whole new perspective. It's wonderful.
There's an emphasis that she brings, you know, which is directed toward women, which we've always needed, because Gene didn't. You know, he always was such a liberal in everything, and sure, he believes in equality amongst the sexes, as long as it didn't interfere with his home life. You see, that's the. I sometimes joke about that. No, he was quite liberal, but he was also the man's man, and women had a place, and that was it, as you can see from the films that he did. And like poor little Christine, you know, she was I really felt sorry for her. I never really thought too much of her. I felt she was a weakling, and she probably deserved what she got. If I can tell the story, I mean, here she is. She was a doctor to start with, and in order to go out and find her fiancé, she accepts a position on board this starship at a reduction in rank and a reduction in salary, of course. Signs on as a nurse because they already have the doctor, and off they go. She finds her fiancé, who turns out to be an android. Well, he's not going to do her any good. Right. So she immediately signs back on this ship again for a 5-year mission, again at a reduced in rank and pay, and immediately falls in love with a Vulcan who only comes in heat once every 7 years. Now, this woman's a loser.
The 60s were a pretty violent time.
Oh, gosh, yes, wow.
It's the 90s, and to me, there's a very similar parallel. People are angry about similar issues. The shows on television are becoming much more violent. I think it's kind of a release. I don't even want to try and get into the psychology of it. But here's Star Trek, 30 years later, still sending out that message. And here's the planet with new technology but the same thing's happening. Now, there's some power there.
I think that basically the mission in Star Trek as a television series has always been to deal with the problems of the time.
You're being a little bit upstaged by a kitty cat. Do you want her to eat that? Or
That's all right. No, if she didn't want it, she wouldn't be eating it.
So is this her thing to do?
No, Frank, I've never seen it before. You must have brought awfully pretty flowers. People come up to me off the streets and say, "Thank you for making us live again." I mean, women who are over 40. I said, that's what, and somebody came up and says, "You play that part, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I want to tell you how much we all appreciate that. Anybody who's over 40.
So tell us about this cat.
Oh, I've got a couple of them. We've got one. They're Birmans. That's B-I-R-M-A-N. And they come from Burma, but they're not Burmese. They are sacred temple cats, and they're fairly new. They've into the United States.
All right, Chewie, you've upstaged the star long enough now. You've upstaged by. Oh, look! She even listened to me. She said, "Okay, well, they got my close-up. I'm ready.
Yes,
ready.
are you
They
my
got
girl?
my close-up."
Are you my girl? You my girl, huh? Yes, yes. Oh, I'm a real animal activist, too.
Well, tell me about that.
I
Tell me
love
about that. I know you are.
Well, I love animals. I started really when I was a kid, and then I finally decided I liked it so much, and I remember working so hard when I was really young, and I wanted a fur coat, and I bought myself a fur, but I didn't wear it that much. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't wearing it, and I kept on looking at it, and by God in heaven, it occurred to me I couldn't do it because there was an animal that had been in it. An animal. There were an awful lot of animals that had gone up to make that, and I gave up meat. Don't eat meat or anything anymore. And as far as an animal is concerned, driving across a squirrel the other day, I made Ernie turn around and said, "Ernie, go back. I don't know if it's dead."
Talk about the conventions then.
Oh, yeah, but they're so easy to talk about, really, because they're only made up of people who are looking for the same type of thing and the same thing that probably I am and you are. And the nice thing about them is the fans that go there are going with one purpose in mind, and that's to meet others who feel the same way about things that they do. And of course, that's basically why Gene did Star Trek in the way that he did it. He wanted to find some intelligent people out there to speak to. The reactions that these friends have. I like to refer to them as friends of Star Trek rather than anything else, because they are. They have told us what to do. They have told us what they want to know about, what they want to hear about. They have told us how they feel about certain things. They have told us what they like. And it's not that, well, you can't say I like comedy, I like adventure, I like something else. It's the things that they want to talk about. See, they already have a camaraderie when they come there. They know that they're going to be with a bunch of people who are just like they are that weekend. And so they're willing to give everything like that. And it's fun talking to them. I enjoy it. That's why I sign autographs all day long, and I sit down at a table because I enjoy talking to them.
Tell me who they are. Are they engineers? Are they scientists? Who are these people?
Yes, to
Let's
all
dispel that myth that they're just,
yes to all
they have
the
kissed a girl.
No, they are. They are scientists. They are young working people. They are the young marrieds. They are older marrieds. There is everything in this world that you could possibly imagine, and not a bunch of dipsy kids or a bunch of ne'er-do-wells or a bunch of people who don't fit. Some of those come too, but that's because they know that there is a place for them there too. They feel they can be a friend to an astrophysicist who's going to be sitting right next to them. They have a common thing to talk about. They have a common feeling, how they feel about something. That's what we're all looking for. I remember once they were thinking, like in the second year, of because Geordie wanted his glasses off. I mean, LeVar has beautiful, expressive eyes, and here we've covered them all, and that's what an actor uses to see with. And he wanted his glasses. I mean, certainly in the 24th century we can cure this whole thing, hopefully. Gene was toying with it for a while, and I just thought, well, just for the heck of it, I'm going to ask some of these audiences, how would you feel if Star Trek solved Geordie's problem and he could take his glasses off, or his visor off? And they it was like 50-50. So we'll vote. And there's a vote here and a vote here. And it was still 50-50, but I said, anybody feels strongly about it? And this little person who was, I believe, sitting in a wheelchair, who was blind, said, please don't do that. He said, you've given us so much right now to look forward to. And he says, we've always thought that people with a disability, there is a place in space in the future for me. And he says, if you turn around and fix it, and fix the problem, we're going to say, hey, I was wrong. There is no place for me. And the tears came to my eyes, as they're doing right now. And I came home and I told Jean, and I said, you can't do that. And so they didn't.
Isn't it amazing?
Isn't it? Never thought of that. Well, there's not really much to tell. It's obviously a very early photo. It was my last attempt to imitate Jane Russell. Well, this is my hill.
This is your hill.
This is my hill, my hillside that I decided I wanted all sorts of fruits and flowers and things and everything like that. Something you could do something with instead of just sit there and look at. So I got a bunch of things. I got banana trees, and guess what? I got bananas.
So who's this that just came to
Yeah,
visit us?
this is Bump von Roddenberry. And he's a white German Shepherd. And you take a real good look at him. I keep on looking at all these animal movies anyway, because I'm really in love with animals so much. And you see a wolf. And by God in heaven, that's not that many generations removed. And she's a real protector, boy. She's not harmful right now, but by God, I wouldn't want her to dislike me.
No, I wouldn't either.
And come at me.
This used to be Cary Grant's house, is that right?
Yeah, he and Hutton owned it at one time.
Have you ever had anybody find out where you live and be a nuisance?
We're on all those lists. Yeah, people come over here and stop. One of the reasons the gates up there went up was one day I came out the front door and there was a bus sitting in the driveway. I mean, right in front of the door. With they said that later, because we'd called on them, and they said later there were 70 Japanese businessmen who had come over who wanted to see the house.
Oh no!
All friendly and nice, but it's frightening.
Yeah,
It's very frightening.
When the Space Shuttle Enterprise was christened,
Yes.
they invited a bunch of the cast members,
Yes.
and Jean was there. Were you there too?
No, I wasn't. I don't know why I missed it. I evidently had something else to do. I might have been out playing golf, which I could kick myself for now in retrospect, but I didn't go. But when they brought out the Enterprise, because the public had demanded it, it was really quite an honor, and it's thrilling. I've seen some of the pictures, like moving pictures of it, and it was a thrill watching it being rolled out there and see Enterprise, of course. It doesn't fly. It could never go out in space.
It was just a test.
It was basically a prototype, and it was for display, and that's what they had been doing with it. So it worked out nicely. But since then, Jean was on the board of the National Space Society. So guess who's now on the board of the National Space Society? And I'm a membership of the Interplanetary Society. They are taking the Enterprise, the aircraft carrier, and refurbishing it, and they have a room on it that they want to call the Star Trek room, and it will be dedicated to Jean this October, where I'm going to go back and speak to them on that. So all of these things are such beautiful honors, and the involvement with space and being able to go up. And I'm on about 3 or 4 other committees. I think Ernie could fill me in, but I just can't think of what all they are now. And, sometimes they somewhat sound alike, but our main goal is still onefold. It's to keep man or humans up in space.
So there's a real connection there, isn't there?
Yeah.
The whole Star Trek universe and the world, there's a connection for you.
Well, if there's a purpose to Star Trek, as I said before, it's to keep people interested in this, because, again, you cannot imagine how really important it is and how far we have come. because somebody was interested, and how many lives have been changed because of it, because they've gone into the space industry. It's a good feeling.
So when you hear about they're trying to build a space station, they're trying to scale it down.
That's all right. We've got to get up there. Scale it down, make it anything you want it to be, but do it. Do it. God, we've got to do it. We can't afford not to. This one goes back a lot of years too. I'm not going to tell you how many because then you can figure it out. But I was either 14, 15, or 16, and I was a freestyle and figure skater at the time, and I had my highest ranking was I was 5th place United States champion. I don't remember what year it was. I think this is right after I won a state championship, though. That's what that trophy is. It speaks for itself. It's yellow. And that's just about how old it is, too. It was 3 Brides for Hoss. I did 3 bonanzas, I believe, while it was on the air. And it was just a real fun thing to do. For about 7 or 8 years, I was Madison Avenue's answer to the typical American housewife. Most of the time, I was with my gloves on, with my arms up to their elbows, with dish soap and things like that. I did every cleaning product there was.
Tell me about the hats, because I have seen these.
You've seen them on cruises, right?
I saw a picture at a Paramount office in there.
Well, evidently they've become standard wear. I mean, they are prerequisite on the cruises. But the bad part about it is, guess who makes them? Me. And each one of these little things up here that's sitting like that, hand done, every single bit of it. Glue, sew, any way you can get them on. And you have to string the beads. Each of these hats probably takes me a good 6 hours. And I used to be able to try to get somebody to help, but they got so tired of it they wouldn't do it. And all these little things are strung on to the braid in the first place, and the braid is put on. And what I got myself into when I started this thing, I can't believe.
And there's Christmas balls.
Well, that's
another hobby.
That's new. That's something that I used to do, but they were simple. I mean, a couple of hours like this, and I'd have a little Christmas ball. They come wrapped in these packages and pre-packaged. And then you have to take everything out and do them again, one by one by one by one by one. And I got a whole mess of them because I decided I'm going to have a Christmas tree. So this house is, at Christmas time, it has over 100,000 little white lights all over it. Outside, the roof, those big trees out in front, they are covered with lights. And I have Santa Clauses up, and it's a regular play yard. And then inside, I put up 9 trees, all decorated. So I wanted the main tree this year to have to be white with all of these beautiful balls on it. Well, little did I know that each one of these balls, too, when you talk about time, will take anywhere no less than 8 hours, and I have gone 20 to 30 hours on some of them. I'd like to show you some of these. Well, there's not necessarily prize, but
they're beautiful.
But
and they look like they have 1,000 beads on them.
they have, oh no, more than that. One of them says they have 20,000 beads on it. Because each one of these little teeny tiny beads,
This is called
they have
Eventide.
names too.
Yeah,
Eventide. This is Eventide.
Which is, I guess, the loops.
I don't know what it is, but it takes a long time and it's very, very tedious.
I saw one that was called Tiffany.
Yeah,
I like that
a beauty.
I like that.
Absolute beautiful. Here she goes.
Okay, hold it real steady.
Isn't that pretty?
Okay, sure.
Whoops.
Now that's cool. Now it's time to put a light in it.
Wait a minute. Here we go.
Don't you think?
There. A light?
Put a light in there. Put a very operative light and a chain. How long did that one take?
Oh gosh, that's probably one of the worst. I would say that would be a 30-hour one.
And what was it?
This one is Cathedral. Is that, yeah.
Very nice.
This one was fun. Boy, I forget what the name of it. I can find out, can't I? It's no, it's not Cathedral. What is this? Regency.
Regency.
That's it. With all those
Very
little
nice.
things, every single one of them, individual.
That could spin around with a spotlight on it and throw, you know.
Yes, that's good. Would you like to come over and try that
They
and
make
put them
those
all
up.
up
Well,
this
you know, they have
next
that.
year?
Hallmark has little big.
I wasn't
things.
talking about Hallmark. If you're admiring them, you've got the idea. You do it.
Okay, I'll stop by at Christmas next year and we'll put those on a little. That'd be great, you guys.
Oh,
that's
Lord. Yeah, and let me see what this one is. Oh, I like this one, too. And the colors, I mean, every color in the rainbow. I got over I've got almost 200 of them. So I don't have 200 done, obviously. I think we've got about 75 of them done.
Now, do you
That would
design
be
these or
it.
you buy
No.
them as a kit?
No, I buy them as a kit. I mean, that's all I need to do is try to sit down and do something like that.
And is it
Oh,
just something you do
be
to relax,
disaster.
or-
Yeah, and you know where I do them a lot is on airplanes.
Oh, when you're going traveling.
I travel, all those times that I travel and everything, I get on and I spread myself out and I put the pillows here and that on top of me and stick my pins in the pillows. And I carry my own airplane pillow around, a little pillow like this that you stick all these little things in. And then let me see, the other, well, this isn't a craft or anything, but I play golf.
Golf is important to you.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's why Gene and I both played. And that's why one of the reasons we bought this house was because it's right across the street from the golf course,
Okay.
which is kind of fun.
Golf is an interesting game.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
tough game.
It's very tough, but I mean, you know, the best part about it is you're never playing the same game twice, no matter how many times you've played the course, because there is no such thing as the same lie twice.
Right.
And not only that, but you have no one to blame but yourself, and it's the most disgusting thing. This is the leveling sport that everybody should take up. It
Right.
teaches you real humility. There isn't a darn thing you can do, and your biggest enemy, the only enemy you have, is the course. You're playing against the course. You're not playing against people. It has nothing to do with that, and you have no one to blame except yourself. Oh, it's
hard work.
terrifying.
You walk around, you carry this stuff, you go to a hole, you got this little ball, there's a hole 2 miles down there, you hit it 25, 30 times, you get it in the hole.
But it's the way somebody described it as a beautiful walk in the park ruined.
Yes, I would buy that. I'm kind of, Well, let's go back to how you got into acting.
I got into acting. I was 10 years old. I grew up in Cleveland, so I went to the Cleveland Playhouse, curtain puller group. And I was the kind of person who was, went and grabbed my mother's leg and behind. I was so backward and so bashful. And she said, maybe this will bring her out. And it didn't really succeed that much at the time. But I think I made up for it a little bit later. And then when I went to school, I tried to do stage shows and everything in high school, those type of things. And I went to college, and where I went to the University of Miami in Florida, majored in underwater basket weaving. That's facetious. It was really a...
No, I caught that one. Okay.
but I was a radio drama TV major minor. That's what I took. Then I graduated from college and I went to 1 year of law school. Don't ask me why. I flunked a 6-credit course called contracts, and I decided that was the end of my law career because I couldn't stand to take that course again. It was dreadful. And also I didn't like law. I mean, I never really have liked law. The only part of law that I enjoyed was criminal law. And they say you can't make any money doing that, and the rest of it was just based on old English law anyway, which is so archaic, it's unbelievable.
Right.
But the system still insist on doing it. So therefore, you take the element of justice out of our system, right. And I don't know what you're substituting it with, but I guess you're substituting it with the almighty dollar.
Right.
And I
way to make
didn't.
money for lawyers.
Yeah. And I couldn't handle that. So I quit, and I went up to New York to do what I wanted to do first, or at least to try to. And ended up in a whole bunch of stock and resident leading lady in probably 6 or 7 stock companies throughout the United States. I was hired to do a show a couple of shows on Broadway, one that opened and closed in one very fast week. That really never made it to Broadway. It was called Models by Season, and it was a bad show. And the other one was Solid Gold Cadillac, which I toured with for 9 months at the time. Boy, that's dating me. If somebody goes back and finds out what year that came out. Here I've been telling everybody I'm 30. And then after that, I came out to California to do a play with Eddie Horton at the Pasadena Playhouse. And from there, I went from studio to studio and was studying in groups. And over at Paramount, I did 3 pictures there, Buccaneer, Black Orchids, and As Young as We Are. And then went next door to Desilu and was, Lucy was I was her protege, so as to speak, and in her little theater group. Mm-hmm. And the rest is just history. It's just working and keeping on working. Madison Avenue's answer to the typical American housewife. That's what I was for about 7 years. I played everything that cleans something I have had. Really? I have done it. I've cleaned it.
Except
and
Hazel.
That's right.
Tell me more about Lucy.
Fascinating woman. Yeah, absolutely fascinating woman. Tough, sometimes the most gracious, beautiful, fair person in the world, and the other times you say, "Who is this?" You know, very, very unpredictable person. And I loved her. I did. She just had a lot going for her. She did it the hard way, and you could get to know her. Once she'd let down all that stuff that she had put on during the day, and you get to know her a little bit. And I went down to Del Mar a couple of times with her and the kids, and we always played cards, and I was fairly good at it. She was so good that she wanted somebody who would at least try to beat her.
Oh my goodness.
So I guess I qualified from that point of view. But I spent some good quality time with Lucy. Very, very nice.
And when you say you were her protege in her theater group?
It was a little theater group that she wanted a stable of actors. And so I think there were maybe 25, maybe 30, maybe not that many, maybe less, as a matter of fact. I'm almost sure less. But we came in, she gave us dancing lessons, singing lessons, acting, grooming, camera type of work and so on, and she was teaching. She was really teaching.
So you got a lot out of that?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
I'm old enough to know better than to ask that question.
Out of my mouth, I was thinking,
shame on you.
You've done so well today until now.
I'm quick on those things, though. You don't catch me on that very often.
Well, that's going on there at room 4, though now it's funny, so maybe we'll stay in.
I can see everybody reaching for their calculators this year from how many?
I was still 29.
That's right.
Desilu. I've been lucky enough to be on the lot at Paramount, and right down the middle there's holes in a big wall. Desilu Paramount, and then it became one. But let's go back. It's 1960. They're trying to build a spaceship there, and you get involved with it.
I don't know how to say that. You see, at the time when I knew Gene was doing it. I knew because he'd written the part for me. I was the first person cast because he wrote the rest of the parts around that character. Really, Number one. Yeah.
Number one.
But at the time we were kind of peculiar. We were strange, even to Lucy. And she's seen an awful lot of things. So they went ahead and Desi, who was really the business head of it, and then it was sold. It got sold somehow or other to NBC. And what they had done was they put us out onto the Culver City lot because I think we were a little too weird to be on the main lot anyway. They didn't know who we were or what we were doing. We had weird-looking things running around and green people and all sorts of stuff like that. And so. When it went out there, I never saw it before the days we went over and actually did some testing and everything on it. I think I was over there once or twice with Gene just while they were building it, but I didn't know what spaceship really was. I'd seen the pictures and everything of it, but certainly when you're doing cutaways, you don't see anything that looks like the picture of the spaceship. Better to do that, go up to a lab where the special effects and everything are.
Right.
So we just went ahead like anybody else, but we go into this lot where there is no one else. There was no commissary, there was nothing. It had been locked up, and I think we had either two stages, maybe 3, not that much. There wasn't that much money in those days.
It was a silent movie stage, basically, wasn't it? The first season, didn't you guys have to just contend with all kinds of inadequacies?
Not really. No, those were stages. Once the thing got sold, it wasn't sold. That pilot was not sold. So I'm only telling you right now about the pilot because, of course, the thing changed after that.
So we're back on the pilot.
Okay, and anyway, we're doing the tests, and all sorts of weird things happened there. I know that the night before we were going to shoot one of the tests, because I was the one that was doing the testing for most of the women. I was under contract. I was cheap. Susan Oliver was a very expensive star. So I had to test the green makeup. And Freddie Phillips came over, and they don't have, now if you would say green, they pull a green makeup right out of the case. In those days, it was like, how do we make her green? Chlorophyll was, that's right. Chlorophyll was not the answer. But we went ahead and he painted me. Actually, I think it was paint those first few times. And he painted and then put makeup on with it and tried to put the paint with, with some makeup so it would go on a little bit better. And they send out the tests, and they come back, and I'm rosy and pink, and it's looking very good, except that it's not green. So Gene says, okay, put some more green in it. So by this time, this went on 2 or 3 times or something, and finally the 3rd time they called up the lab and said, "What do we do to make this woman green?" And the lab says, "You mean she's supposed to be green? We thought it was a mistake, so we color corrected." So
fixing it back to the right color temperature.
Oh God!
Oh,
In the meantime, now I've got a face peel, you know, every night that I'm doing it, and there's Leonard. And Freddie had never put on ears before on the guy. Well, your ears naturally kind of go out, so therefore, when you just put the tips on without gluing them back, as was the case that happened later, you know, they came out. And he looked like a pointy-eared hobgoblin. It was just, it was incredible. And with the green makeup, and then I had hair, which was supposed to be, it was going to be the long black hair. And so Jean had, I think only like 1 or 2 nights before, gone out and took me over and said that, okay, now we're going to make a wig for her. And it was real hair. And so they brought over this hair, and it was beautiful, it looked gorgeous, put it on me. And we start to roll the cameras and so on. The hairdresser comes up and says, "Majel says, be careful with your hair. Don't touch it or anything. It's, you know, it's hard to get back into shape." Okay. And we kept on going a little bit longer, and she comes over and says, "No, please, don't touch your hair." Says, it's hard. It's very, I can't keep it down. And she put more glue and stuff like that on it. And finally, she came over and she said, "Majel, I told you we cannot continue this way if you are going to keep on messing up your hair." I said, "I'm not doing anything." Well, as it turns out, you can stand there and you can see, because I could feel all these little hairs in the back are crawling up my head. And they're going all the way up to the top. Well, what had happened, they finally figured out, was the gal who had made the wig had wrong-ended it. So when you're using hair, real hair, the bottom goes down here and the root goes up here. Well, it has a memory, even when it's off the head. And it says, this part of it which was down here, this part which was down here says, "I got to go back up where I belong."
Oh my God.
And this is the way it went on for all day long until we figured it out. Well, then finally they decide they're going to call lunch. And there's nowhere to eat. We have nothing. There's a restaurant across the street. So we go outside the thing. We know what's going to happen, expect it. But it's Leonard and I. And we're walking down the street, and of course the cat calls, and the cars and the horns honk. And we get over to the restaurant and walk in, and everybody does their double take and their laughter and things like that, because we look weird even for Hollywood. So we sat down and we ordered, and the waitress was beside herself all this whole time. And he with his, with his ears that are out to here, and me with my green makeup and my hair, which is crawling up in the top of my head. You can actually see it moving now because we're aware of it. And and I'm looking over at Leonard with his ears, and every time he chews, his ears wiggle like that. So needless to say, we brown bagged it from there on in. There was just no. So, but it was so much fun to do, and then the anticipation of waiting for the decision from the studio or from the network, really, and then getting it and finding out that no, we didn't make it, but they liked the idea and they wanted to continue with it. So, but there it was that you have to. They told Jean you have to make 3 changes. It says, number 1, you'll have to get rid of the woman second in command, because no one would believe a broad who's taking charge of a spaceship. And they said the second is you're going to have to get rid of the guy with the ears, because he's too diabolic looking.
Looks like Satan.
Looks like Satan. It'll upset the women in the audience. Right. So Gene's thinking how to get around this. Both of those statements are ridiculous, but he's got a lot of decisions to make. And he said he knew that getting rid of me was going to break my heart, but he really needed that Spock character so much that he decided he would. He decided he would marry the woman and keep the Spock character, because he didn't think that Leonard would have it the other way around. And the and the third thing that they wanted was Gene had wanted to have half and half, men and women, and the network said no to that too, because it would look too much like there's some hanky-panky going on board the ship, and we can't have that. So Gene thought about it a while, and he said he really conceded to that. And he said okay, because he knew he could only fight just so much. And he said he figured that 30 good women could handle a crew of 300 anyway. So that's how we progressed into the next pilot. And again, the rest is history.
You were number 1.
Yeah.
The pilot's over. He sold it. Here's what we're going to change. We've made these 3 changes. Yeah. You were kind of heartbroken.
Sure, I was heartbroken. I wanted to be in it so desperately, And I kind of vowed to myself, somehow I got to do this. So I waited, and it was about the 5th episode in, and I was reading all the scripts as they were coming in, and I saw one that had this one doctor, and she was French at the time. Her name was Christine, but she had a strange French name on the back of it. And it turned out to be what little girls are made of. But I thought, Jesus, I can do this part. But I knew what Jean was going to say. You don't do it. I mean, once you are thrown off of a show, you just do not go back in on a permanent type of basis. So I figured I had to convince Jean of what I was thinking of in the first place. So one evening I went home and I bleached my hair, I had black hair because I had dyed it to match the wig that I didn't get to use. But I came in the next morning and I sat in the chair. Before he got there, I was talking to Penny, his secretary, and he walks in and just smiled. He looked over, he smiled at me like this and said something to Penny, and into his office he walks. And I said, well, I blew that one. Obviously, he doesn't even notice that my hair has gone from black to white, so there goes my whole theory. And soon he walks back out again, puts some papers and stuff on her, and nods at me back in, and goes back in. And then it happened. He went to, Majel? And I said, if I can fool you, I said, I can certainly fool NBC. And he said, yep. So that's how Christine got around. We bleached my hair. We changed my name on the original credits on the thing to on the cage to M.L. Hudec, which is my real last name. And then we kept Majel Barrett on this one.
So now you've gone from first officer to
Yeah.
dental assistant. No.
That's right.
I mean,
She'd have had more to do.
You're wearing a miniskirt. What did you think? You went from being this commanding, futuristic, take heed, to this very mousy, quiet person in a miniskirt.
Yes, I was pleased to have a job, frankly. Okay. It didn't really go much further than that, except that, I was always at the studio. I mean, with the setup that Jean had it was perfect for it. And I was there for all kinds of help and to do whatever I could. And I was learning an awful lot too. And it was fun to watch him.
I mean,
well, is it? Thank you. But it was informational. I had never been that close to the setups of what goes on behind. And of course, I spent most of my time in that back room. Doing my own things and my own work, and I could hear everything that was going on. So it was like, I was in on everything. It was great.
It was training.
Yeah, beautiful training.
Was it just the times? Was it that it was the 60s? How the heck did they go from very military-looking uniforms for the men and women to miniskirts?
That's an excellent question. I haven't any idea as to what the answer is outside of Jean loved women. And he loved to see just as much of them as he possibly could. And he also had network censors who were saying, you can't do this and you can't show that and so on. So he had Bill make all of these costumes that would just conform to standards. I think he did it mainly out of spite, just to show them, and because Bill brought these things in, and that's the one thing Jean insisted on, he had to okay the costume before it ever went out on the thing. So I have mixed feelings about how to answer the question. I have a feeling that I know what went on in the office when these girls would be paraded around, and I have a feeling that there were a whole bunch of these guys, sitting there okaying the costume, so as to speak. But the other thing was really, I think, to get back at the networks, because on the next show that Jean did, he was told that he could not show someone's belly button in this show once. And on the next show he did with Mariette Hartley, which was Genesis, he built into the script a built-in thing, so she had 2 belly buttons and you had to show them. That's my picture as number 1 in the cage. There's good old Chapel handling some piece of equipment that Feinberg found somewhere, probably an ashtray. Dolled up to look like something else. We used so many salt and pepper shakers for different things but the imagination was there, you'll have to admit it. That was Dr. Chapel, let me say that, and try to put some of the guilt somewhere else. I guess I just got frustrated and I looked at the camera. As I remember, I think Jean picked that one out and surprised me with that, because I would never have had it made up. But I think maybe I was doing it at him. But as I recall, this is somewhere in Florida. And we took a boat, and Jean and I, and went out and went fishing. It's that simple. and that's my pet barracuda, whom I named Oscar. Well, that photo speaks for itself. It's a picture of Jean and I, of course. I guess I was in, what was that? Well, that had to be number 4, wasn't it?
You think it'll happen? Jean's vision?
Well, I'll tell you, to a certain degree, some of it's already happening. As to whether or not we really get there, I don't know. I think there'll always end up being problems somewhere, and I think Jean did too. This utopia is a great idea, but even he, in his speeches, even he says this probably will not come to happen as I've done it or as I've said it. But at least it gives us a goal, for God's sakes. We've got to have something to go for. And it does say one thing very positively: yes, there will be a tomorrow. Not what tomorrow is even going to be like, but there will be a tomorrow.